A max-funded IUL is far superior to IRAs and 401ks and even Roth IRAs and 401ks. Get ready, because at the end of this video, you're going to gain insights into how a max-funded IUL policy eliminates the dangers of taxes, inflation, and market volatility, which are the three biggest dangers that cause most people to outlive their money when they follow the herd, putting money into traditional IRAs and 401ks. You're going to see how you can double your money every 7 to 10 years, and every $1 million that you accumulate can generate $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year of tax-free income for as long as you live, based upon actual history. So, I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for more than 48 years. And one of my favorite financial vehicles to accumulate money tax-free, not just tax-deferred, and then later on generate tax-free income. And then when you ultimately pass away, it blossoms, it increases in value and transfers tax-free, is a max-funded indexed universal life insurance policy structured for living benefits even more than for the death benefit, okay? Now, I have a lot of episodes on this channel, Three-Dimensional Wealth, that explain how this works. So be sure and search the channel if you do not quite understand this. But I'm going to jump into why so many people in preparation for retirement choose to put their serious cash that they're socking away for the future, like retirement, into max-funded IUL rather than into IRAs and 401ks or even Roths. So there's a lot of considerations when you are thinking about retirement, because there's three big dangers that cause most people to outlive their money. One is taxes. Now, as of the recording of this episode, President Joe Biden is in office, but it doesn't matter if he's no longer in office. Politicians, especially tax revenuers, oftentimes will raise taxes, and they do this to fund their initiatives. So, for example, during the Biden administration, he was increasing income taxes, not just on the high income earners, but doing it indirectly by changing the way that you contribute to a 401k. For example, usually if people contributed, let's say 15% to a 401k and they made $100,000 a year, that's $15,000. You only had to report $85,000 on your 1040 tax return. See, he wanted to change that so that you still reported a whole $100,000, and then he would give you a tax credit if you contributed to a 401k. But that credit maybe was only 26%, which was indirectly a tax increase to people who made middle income to higher incomes. Okay? And so the government giveth and the government taketh away. So that's the reduced 401k benefits. Roth conversions. He wanted to scrap those, people taking lump sums and converting to a Roth. He wanted to dramatically increase the capital gains tax. And so he had to back off a little bit. But there's all kinds of taxes, capital gain tax, and then there's the estate tax. Now, this is where sometimes politicians love to tax people that are 6 feet under, so to speak, because they can't complain about it. And so he was raising those taxes from about 40% up to as high as 67%. The corporate tax from 21% for corporations up to 28%. And people go, that's only 7% higher. No, it's actually 33% more. If a corporation made $1 million of profit and they used to pay $210,000, now they pay $280,000, which is 33% more. A lot of times they can't afford to do that without laying off people or raising the price of their goods and services. And that's one of the reasons why we had inflation go out of control, over 15% during the first year that Biden was in office. Raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour didn't do much good because it was eaten up at the gas pump and the hamburger stand with the increase of the cost of living. So healthcare, free college tuition, all of these initiatives. When I ask audiences, how many of you think that taxes in the future will be lower? I get nothing but crickets. How many think taxes will be the same? maybe one or two hands go up. But when I ask how many of you think that in the long run taxes will be higher, a sea of hands goes up. And then I go, so why are you postponing, deferring, procrastinating paying tax in traditional IRAs and 401ks to some future perceived unknown advantage? And then you're going to withdraw your money down the road when you're convinced taxes are higher? That doesn't make any sense. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize. Ever since 1986 tax reform, the second term of President Reagan, Americans only pay income tax on their 1040 tax return on three types of income: earned, passive, and portfolio income. This would be salaries and wages, rents and leases, and maybe interest and dividends. If you have income during retirement that is not under one of those three umbrellas, there is nowhere to put it on a tax return. It's tax-free. It's that cut and dry. That's why my favorite vehicle, an IUL policy, generates income and it's totally tax-free. It's not a loophole. It's always been tax-free for over 108 years. Now, when we talk about inflation, many times when government spends double or triple what they bring in revenue, I mean, hello, if you made $100,000 a year and you kept spending $200,000 or $300,000 a year, how long could you do that before you'd have to file bankruptcy? Well, that's what was going on in 2020 because of the COVID-19. They spent double what they made or what the IRS brings in. And then they passed all of these stimulus packages. And so they printed money. And they continued to print money to where there were trillions of dollars printed money that was out there in the American economy. And that is what causes inflation, if you don't understand that. So I remember early in the year 2021 when there was all this panic. Oh, inflation is hitting 4.2%. CNBC, Barron's, Fox, Bloomberg, Forbes, New York Times, Market Watch. And they were panicking. Well, later on, they said, oh, inflation's at 5.8%. And I just rolled my eyes. Back in the early 80s, during right after the Carter years, okay, I started in 1974, inflation got to double digit. It topped out at 14%. The federal government decided they couldn't afford to pay Social Security recipients the actual cost of living increase. It's called the CPI, or Consumer Price Index. And so they changed the way they report inflation. Instead of apples to apples, a basket of goods to the same basket of goods a year later, it was like apples to oranges. They can actually compare the price of filet mignon steak last year to hamburger this year because it's still red meat. Yep. And so the actual rate of inflation in the year 2021 was over 15%, but they reported it was only 5.8%. So whatever they tell you, you can almost triple it. Well, people can't afford to keep up with 20% inflation rates. And some of the items like gasoline, used cars, many groceries went up not only 20%, but 50% and even double in some states. So inflation is the second thing that erodes away people's purchasing power. At 15% inflation, you divide that into 72 and the cost of living will double every 5 years. So let me show you this. When people, I think, get duped into putting money into tax-deferred IRAs and 401ks, they would come to me at retirement and I would ask them to bring their after-tax IRA 401k statements. And they'd go, after tax? I knew they didn't have it. So, I'll calculate it for you. Because they would look at their nest egg, and if it was $1 million, I would go, that's not all your money. You think it looks like this sumptuous hoagie Subway sandwich depicted here on the left. After you pay tax, after Uncle Sam gets his share, and 41 out of 50 states has a state income tax, it looks like this unappetizing sandwich on the right. Yeah, $1 million in an IRA or 401k, only about $650,000 of it is your money. The rest belongs to the government. If that $1 million nest egg was earning, 7.2%, you could pull out $72,000 a year. But you're only going to have a net of $48,000 to buy gas and groceries, prescriptions, and golf cream fees, okay? And so if this is already bothering you a little bit and you think, oh, golly, I know somebody who ought to watch this, be sure and share this. Post a comment, click like. But most importantly, subscribe to this channel. It's free, and click that little bell when you do so you'll be notified every time I post a new video, which I do almost on a daily basis. So when people look at these accounts, sometimes I would ask them, were you planning your retirement or Uncle Sam's? Okay. So Time Magazine back in 2009 had this front page story, why it's time to retire the 401k and do something better instead. The author of that article, Stephen Gandel, said, the truth of it is the 401k is a financial flop, a rotten repository for our retirement reserves. Why? Because for the second time in a decade, in 2008, people lost 40% in the value of their IRAs and 401ks in America. And when you lose 40%, you have to have a 67% gain to make up for a 40% loss. If $1 million nest egg goes down to 600,000, 600,000 has to grow by 400,000, 67% to make up for a 40% loss. And it takes usually 4 or 5 years to do that. And that happened twice in that decade. Now, people using my favorite vehicle, a Max-Funded IUL, they didn't lose a dime in 2001 to 2003 after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, nor in 2008. They were cheering, go, because they didn't lose a dime. They may not have made very much in 2008, but the very first 90 days of 2009, most of them locked in gains of 16% tax-free after not losing a penny in 2008. They ended up with double or triple the money. So stay with me here. I want to gift you a book at the end of this episode. Sometimes I feel like this guy who has all this artillery, this machinery, automatic weapons, and people are fighting the battles of life with swords and shields, and I'm saying, hey, I've got ammunition here. And they go, I'm too busy to be talking to some crazy salesman. I've got a battle to fight. I need to make sure my money doesn't run out before I do. And I'm going, that's what I'm trying to show you here. Well, how much is $1 trillion? That's $1 bills lined up from here to the moon and back 200 times. That's 1 trillion. The government has been printing that much a month. Okay. Now, sometimes things like Social Security, the government owes $130 trillion in future Social Security and Medicare benefits that they don't even have. If they stopped withholding from people's paychecks, they would be broke in 9 months. So the message is we're in trouble because the government has to keep printing money and raising taxes. So it's sort of like a sinking ship. And sometimes Congress, I think, is rearranging deck chairs on a sinking Titanic. And they don't realize that that ship is going to sink because if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will become your downfall. That's not just with your personal budgets, but with government. So I want to help you board a lifeboat so you stay afloat financially if the USS economy sinks. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. And I want to gift you a copy of my book to help you understand this at the end of the episode. Uncle Sam is going to have to take a bigger and bigger piece of the American taxpayers' pie. And so many people, when they look at their IRAs or 401ks, they don't realize the negative impact of time, T-I-M-E. Taxes, inflation, market volatility, and economic uncertainty. I feel you must have a vehicle that passes the laser test. Laser means liquid assets safely earning returns that are equal to or greater than the inflation rate at any given time, which I've been blessed to do for over 48 years with my serious cash. So sometimes people look at their 401k and they start realizing it's not the cat's meow they thought it was. So what do? Rule of 72 says this. If you were to earn 7.2%, where did I get that number? Well, it's convenient because the worst decade since the Great Depression, 2000 to 2010, it's called the Great Recession. Most people went through that whole 10 years and their money went down by 40% twice, and they weren't even back to break even. Whereas people using indexed universal life, they earned 7.23%. And that's without rebalancing. When they rebalance, they actually earned over 10. So at 7.2%, you divide that into 72, that tells you your money will double every 10 years. So that means if you started out with 125,000 year one, it would double to 250,000 in 10 years, 500,000 in 20 years, and $1 million in 30 years. I've had many people realize that. Okay, it's just math, it's compound interest. Well, let's say that you have $1 million nest egg earning 7.2, And so you pull out the interest because you don't want to deplete your principal. That's 72 grand. In a tax-deferred IRA or 401k, in a 33% tax bracket between federal and state tax, you have to pay $24,000, a third of 72 in taxes. You're netting $48,000 to buy gas, groceries, prescriptions, golf green fees, whatever you like to do in retirement. That's $4,000 a month. People say, if we tighten our belt, honey, maybe we can get by. Well, then what happens? If inflation is 5%, 5 into 72 tells you the cost of living will double every 14.4 years, every 15 years. So $4,000 a month in less than 15 years will only buy what $2,000 a month buys today. You're going to need $8,000 a month in 15 years to buy the same gallons of gas and loaves of bread that $4,000 a month buys today at 5% inflation. That's 5%. Okay, what about inflation at 7.2%? In 10 years, you'll need twice as much. 10% every 7.2 years. 12% every 6 years. But inflation has been over 15% as of the recording of this episode. That means in 4.8 years, less than 5 years, you will need $8,000 a month to buy what $4,000 a month buys today. And in another 4.8 years, less than 10 years from today, you will need $16,000 a month to buy what $4,000 a month buys today. So what's the solution? It's a max-funded IUL because it helps you outpace inflation. So the three biggest dangers that cause most people to outlive their money: rising taxes, inflation, and market volatility. I eliminate those dangers for my clients with three opportunities. You want to switch to tax-free vehicles, which an IUL is. You want to link your returns to the things that inflate. So if inflation's at 10, you'll earn maybe 15 like I have. So that when the market goes up, you benefit, but when the market crashes, you do not lose. And you need to search this channel on how that works, or I'm going to show you how you can read and study about indexing. I'm not talking about index mutual funds. The reason why I like Max-Funded IUL is because it passes the liquidity, safety, and rate of return test with flying colors. Hence, it's called a laser fund, liquid asset safely earning returns. So here's how you can claim your free copy if this is intriguing you. Simply go to laserfund.com and you contribute a nominal amount toward the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost. I'll pay for the book and I'll fire out a hard copy to you. It's 300 pages and you will have all kinds of charts and graphs and explanations. And when you flip it over, there's another 62 stories on this side. But this will empower you. And then there's options there to listen and learn and watch and learn. But claim your free copy now by going to laserfund.com. And I will see you on the brighter side of your amazing future.